What's up, guys? I'm back here on the Dyno lease cycle, but today I have a very special surprise for you guys. Now, normally when we buy a brand new bike, what we'll typically do is do the buying video, the break-in video before we hit the dyno video. But because we haven't seen any dyno videos for this bike in particular, we decided the first thing we're gonna do is take this thing to the dyno, post the results for you guys because I know you guys are waiting for it. But check out what we got. That's right, it's the 2026 Aprilia RSV4 Factory 1100. Now, the first question you guys are gonna have is about this tank here. It doesn't fit the bike, and that's 100% true, and that's the only reason we actually got this bike is because the tank is the way it is. And I'll go over why in our buy video that will be coming after this dyno video shortly, so there's a whole story to that. But for now, let's get this thing on the dyno and see what kind of stock numbers it produces and how it compares to the Ducati Panigale V4 for 2025. We're all strapped down with the 26 Aprilia RSV4, and we even have the sniffer here for some AFR readings for stock. Now again, this bike is 100% stock. We haven't done anything to this motorcycle except turn the key and ride it. We have 91 pump gas in the tank at the moment. Completely stock exhaust system, which is new for 2026. They relocated a couple things under the exhaust now, so it doesn't resemble the old exhaust, though I'm told the old exhaust does fit. We have an Acura on the way to verify for you guys, so we'll be doing some mods on this thing, and some tuning and parts, all kinds of stuff. But first, let's see what this thing does stock. All right, guys, I had to stop the dyno for a second here because this is absolutely nuts. We're making 204 rear wheel horsepower, 204 on 91 pump gas. This is absolute insanity. I think we can squeeze a little more out of the dyno again. Only a couple hundred miles on the bike, so maybe it's breaking in a little more on the dyno. We'll see here. Let's see what she peaks at. Okay, guys, this is absolute insanity. We have made now 206 rear wheel horsepower. Look at these curves, they're beautiful. And if we look at the AFR, let's give you basics here, the AFR, it's running, what is this, 12.8, 12.8, 12.9. Usually these things run really lean or really fat, but this thing's running pretty much dead nuts. I mean, I want to see it a little bit fatter than this right up here up top, just for the ram air effect. Now for the fun part, guys, let's lower this down a little bit. Now let's go ahead and start comparing that 206 number to the other 2025 models we've had on the dyno. And let's start with that Panigale V4. So here we are at the V4 in blue, and we have our RSV4 for 2026 in red. Wow, look at that, 190 versus 206. That's 16 rear wheel horsepower more than the V4, but we also have the V4 revving out much further. Now it's interesting, down low here, we have the Ducati actually making power to about 9,300 RPM right here. And then you start trading places, and the RSV4 makes more power at that track RPM that we love seeing. Now, the Panigale V4 making more RPM up top is going to be a close contender on the track regardless of that number figure there, because running that gearing out further helps you the track a lot. We can also see the torque on both these 1100 models, 88 versus 86 foot-pounds of torque. Again, this is stock for stock, no tuning whatsoever. It won't be fair to compare tuning until we get the RSV4 tuned. Now let's try the next one, that CBR1000RR, stock for stock. And here we are, the CBR1000RR for 2025 versus the 26 RSV4. The 26 RSV4 is in red. We can see there's a lot more RPM, but you can't come back from that much of a horsepower discrepancy. That's 27 wheel horsepower we're missing here. And the RSV4 is clobbering this thing across the entire rev range with almost 10 wheel horsepower, give or take here and there. Not to mention torque is also just hammering this thing to death. We see here we got 11 wheel torque and almost 30 wheel horsepower. crazy, crazy. So RSV4 is just taking the crown here in strides with that 206 on a stock number. That's insanity, by the way. So let's go ahead and check it against the BMW, the 25 S1000RR. And we have the BMW S1000RR here in blue and the 26 RSV4 in red again. And you can see that BMW is just beating cheeks over here until about 9,000 or so RPM. That's shift cam. We're talking a bike that is under 1,000 cc's, just destroying an 1100, and does the same thing to the Panigale V4, so it's not unique to the RSV4. These shift cams are just doing crazy work. But where we trade places here, the RSV4 starts really destroying stuff up top. With the max RPM here, we're looking at 16 wheel horsepower discrepancy and 6 wheel torque. That's nothing to laugh at. And we got a little more RPM out of the BMW, which is gonna help, especially if you're track setting right around here. It might be neck and neck just due to that extra RPM. But we also haven't tuned the RSV4 yet. And tuned, we don't really touch the rev limiter on the BMW, but we do touch the rev limiter on the RSV4. So you guys saw it here. The Aprilia is an amazing bike right out of the box. It does a lot of things well and very few cons. And I will go over my complete ride reviews and my initial impressions with this bike with our upcoming videos of buying the bike, the break-in, and of course we'll have our stage 1 tuning before and after results where I'll kind of go into an in-depth of what I think about this motorcycle and how it compares to the litany of motorcycles I've ridden and tested in the past. All the dyno runs you see on the comparison, exact same dyno, this exact dyno. I'm not importing data or anything like that. This is the same dyno data we're getting on 91 pump gas from the same exact gas station actually. Now as for the tuning goes, we're of course going to put those blinkers in the headlights. That is a very popular feature we have on our 21 through 24 Flash currently. We're also going to be messing with the exhaust valve in case those people want to keep the exhaust completely stock. We'll make sure that's wide open for you at all times. There's also torque control, some limiters, and I'll be going through everything one by one with you guys on our stage 1 review. We even did partial throttle runs just to make sure exactly where we're at with the AFR so we can make sure with our tuning that everything's gonna be perfect and make sure that there's no rideability issues even at partial throttle with our tuning. So this bike is heating up a lot on the dyno, and typically I'll see 190 on the temp gauge before I do a pull. This bike wouldn't get below 208 degrees, so I made sure I spent a lot of time between pulls letting it cool down. I really monitor that stuff to make sure the bike's in good condition. Even doing that, check this out. We have coolant pooling at the bottom here. It came out of the bottom. Now, it may have been overfilled. I'm gonna have to go check this over at GP Motorcycles, but it was pouring out of there. You can see it down in the drainage right there. It's just all wet there. And made a nice little mess right here on the floor. Now that is coolant just pushing right out of this bike. But that is not something you'll see from a brand new bike that's 100% stock with no modifications whatsoever. Now unfortunately I don't have data on this particular dyno for an older RSV4, that 21 through 24 model. I only have this one. It would be unfair to compare this dyno against another dyno. That's something you should never do, guys. It's always same dyno, typically the same day type of deal. Of course, I'm doing different days here with different bikes, so there's going to be a discrepancy of a couple of horsepower due to conditions, variables, things of that nature. Overall, it's fairly accurate, a lot more accurate than comparing one dyno to another. Stay tuned for updates, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.